Story 1. The Haunted Hallway. It was a typical day at Oakville High School when strange events began to occur. Students and teachers reported seeing ghostly figures in the hallway near the science lab. Some students claimed that they heard strange noises coming from the lab, even when it was empty. Others reported feeling a cold chill or feeling like they were being watched. The school administration dismissed the reports as the students' imagination, but the strange occurrences continued. The science teacher who was working in the lab reported that his equipment would turn on and off by itself, and that his chemicals were being moved around. The students were getting scared, and the school was being affected. Attendance was down and the school's reputation was at risk. The school's principal decided to call in a parapsychologist to investigate the strange events. The parapsychologist discovered that the science lab had been built on top of an old cemetery, and that the ghostly figures were the spirits of the people buried there. He was able to perform a ritual to lay the spirits to rest and the strange occurrences stopped. Story 2. The Killer in the Classroom. Oakville High School was on high alert as the police were investigating a series of murders in the area. The victims were all students from the high school, and the police had no leads as to who the killer was. The students were scared, and the school was on lockdown. The school's principal decided to call in a retired detective to investigate the murders. The detective went undercover as a substitute teacher, and began to investigate the case. He soon discovered that the murders were connected to a student who had been bullied by his classmates. The student had snapped and was seeking revenge on his tormentors. The detective was able to track down the student and stop him before he could commit another murder. The school was safe again and the students were able to return to their normal routine. Story 3. The Secret Society. Oakville High School was the scene of strange events when a group of students formed a secret society. The society was shrouded in mystery, and no one knew what they were up to. The students who were part of the society were secretive and would not reveal anything about their activities. The other students were curious and some were even afraid of the society. The school's principal decided to investigate the society, and discovered that they were involved in dark rituals and activities. The society was practicing the occult, and they were using the school as their base of operations. The school's principal was able to stop the society and the strange events stopped. The students were safe and the school's reputation was restored. Story 4. The Lab Experiment. Dr. Samantha was a brilliant research scientist working at a prestigious laboratory. She was on the verge of a breakthrough in her field of genetics research, but her experiments were not going as planned. One night, while working late in the lab, strange things began to happen. Equipment would turn on and off by itself, and her lab samples were tampered with. Dr. Samantha couldn't understand what was happening and began to suspect that someone was trying to sabotage her work. She confided in her colleague, but he dismissed her concerns and told her that she was just imagining things. Determined to find out what was happening, Dr. Samantha began to investigate on her own. She soon discovered that her lab assistant, who was jealous of her success, was behind the sabotage. The assistant had been altering her experiments and damaging her equipment in an attempt to ruin her reputation and her career. Dr. Samantha was able to gather the evidence and turn it over to the lab director. The assistant was fired and her research was able to continue unencumbered. Story 5. The Stolen Formula. Dr. Samantha had made a major breakthrough in her field of research, developing a new formula that had the potential to revolutionize the industry. She had been working on the formula for months, and was on the verge of patenting it. But one day, the formula was stolen from her lab. All her notes and records were missing, and there was no sign of a break-in. Dr. Samantha was devastated, and the lab director called the police to investigate. Dr. Samantha was convinced that her rival, Dr. James, had stolen the formula. He was also working on similar research and had always been jealous of her success. The police investigated, but they were unable to find any evidence linking Dr. James to the theft. Determined to clear her name, Dr. Samantha decided to investigate on her own. She discovered that Dr. James had hired a professional hacker to break into her lab and steal the formula. With the evidence in hand, Dr. James was arrested and Dr. Samantha's reputation was cleared. Story 6. The Deadly Discovery. Dr. Samantha was a research scientist who was working on a new drug that was supposed to cure cancer. She had been working on the drug for years, and was finally ready to test it on human subjects. But as soon as the trials began, the patients started to die. Dr. Samantha couldn't understand what was happening and was desperate to find out. She began to investigate and discovered that the drug had been tampered with, and that it was now deadly. She soon realized that the tamperer was the lab's chief of operations, who was under pressure to deliver results and had been willing to cut corners to achieve it. The police were called in and the chief of operations was arrested for murder. Dr. Samantha's reputation was tarnished by the incident, but she was able to continue her research and eventually developed a safe and effective drug that helped many people. Story 7. The Quest for the Lost Treasure. In the land of Aranda, there were many legends of a lost treasure hidden deep in the mountains. The treasure was said to be guarded by a powerful dragon, and many brave warriors had attempted to find it, but none had ever returned. One day, a young adventurer named Jack decided to attempt the quest for the lost treasure. He gathered a group of his friends, all skilled in different areas, and set out on their journey. They traveled through treacherous mountains, deep forests, and scorching deserts, facing many challenges along the way. They encountered fierce beasts, deadly traps, and treacherous bandits, but they never gave up. Finally, after many weeks of travel, they reached the dragon's lair. The dragon was fierce, but with the help of his friends, Jack was able to defeat it and claim the treasure. They found gold, jewels and magical artifacts that could change the fate of the land. With the treasure in hand, Jack and his friends returned home as heroes, and their names were forever remembered in the annals of Aranda's history. Story 8. The Rescue of the Princess. In the land of Aranda, there lived a beautiful princess named Sarah. She was the daughter of the king, and was loved by all the people. One day, while the princess was out for a walk in the countryside, She was kidnapped by an evil sorcerer who wanted to use her as leverage against the king. The sorcerer took her to his castle, deep in the heart of the dark forest, and put her under a spell to keep her under his control. The king, desperate to save his daughter, offered a reward to anyone who could rescue the princess. Many brave warriors attempted the rescue, but none were able to defeat the sorcerer's powerful magic. One day, a young adventurer named Tom decided to attempt the rescue. He gathered a group of his friends, all skilled in different areas, and set out on their journey. They journeyed through the dark forest, facing many challenges along the way. They fought fierce beasts, overcame deadly traps, and finally reached the sorcerer's castle. With the help of his friends, Tom was able to defeat the sorcerer and rescue the princess. The princess was overjoyed to be reunited with her father, and Tom and his friends were hailed as heroes. Story 9. The Battle for the Throne. In the land of Aranda, the kingdom was ruled by a just and fair king, but his rule was threatened by an evil sorcerer who wanted to take the throne for himself. The sorcerer had a powerful army of dark creatures and had been terrorizing the kingdom for months. The king called upon all the bravest warriors in the land to join him in a battle against the sorcerer and his army. One of the warriors who answered the call was a young adventurer named Lucy, who had grown up hearing stories of the sorcerer's atrocities and wanted to put an end to them. Lucy and her friends set out on a journey to gather allies and weapons to help in the fight. They traveled through the different regions of Aranda, overcoming many challenges along the way. They faced fierce beasts, treacherous bandits, and overcame deadly traps. Finally, the day of the battle arrived, and Lucy and her friends joined the king and his army in the fight against the sorcerer's forces. The battle was fierce, but with the help of her friends, Lucy was able to defeat the sorcerer and restore peace to the kingdom.